Hi there, welcome to my channel. I fix my car myself. Today I'm going to take a look at the brakes of the car behind you. I think I have an issue with the brakes there for a while. Uh, the Dodge Challenger has the Kelsey Hayes floating caliper. I think it's the same on several other models, the Barracudas and so on. It has caliper and a piston, and I'm going to restore them and guide you through how I do it. So let's get started. So this is the car. It's an old 70 Challenger, rather rough and beaten up, but so far unrestored. It has had some major repairs and so on, but more or less unrestored. When it comes to the brakes, it's all original, and I was going to talk a little bit about the brakes in general. And what we have here is a brake that is a little bit stuck. When you drive, you can feel it that the brakes doesn't really release as they should, and you can also feel after driving for a while that the rim is a little bit hot. So that's the first sign that there is probably something to take care of. I'm going to disassemble here and look a little bit at the brake and brake pads and see what they look like. Here we have the caliper. It's warm and rather stuck, and we can see that there's something fishy going on here. As I suspected, there is something not really correct here. What we see at the first inspection, we can see that one of the brake pads is totally worn out, and the other one has a lot of material left. We will see it better when we disassemble, but that is a sign that something is not correct here. The caliper is not floating, and that can be due to two reasons. Either the floating bolt or pins here are stuck, or the piston is stuck in the caliper. I'm going to remove it now, and let's take a look at it. These are the bolts and the rubber. It's supposed to be floating, and these have seen better days and should be replaced. Here we can see the difference between, I have to look in the camera so that you can see it. This is rather thick. And this is thin. In a perfect world, they should be the same thickness. Here you can see the piston doesn't look too bad. This must have been replaced at some time, but probably not the piston itself. I suspect that the piston is stuck in the caliper. It's not going to move. It's stuck. Then we might have another problem. It is stuck in the caliper bore, but how much? It can be stuck in a way that we can have a really hard time getting it out. There are different ways to do it. You can use compressed air or a grease gun. If you replace the bleeder screw with a grease fitting here, you can use a grease gun and pump it out. But when we have the caliper still on the car, we can use the brake system of the car to push out the caliper. That's one way to do it. It's a little bit messy. That's why we have this thing here, because it's probably going to squirt out brake fluid in all directions. So I will do another precaution as well. I'm gonna use an old plastic bag to prevent it from squashing out brake fluid in every direction. That's where we're gonna leave it hanging. And now I'm going to press the brake pedal of the car and let's see what happens. A little bit difficult to see there. And I have to press rather hard. We have good news. I can see it already. It shouldn't take much now for the last. it is. Doesn't look too bad, but we are going to replace it anyhow. This is a little bit messy, but that can't be helped. We have to get the piston out of the caliper, and this is anyhow the easiest way to do it. We have no choice. Let's take it on the bench and see what we got. Let's take a look at this and see what we have. Here, as we suspected, one of the brake pads were much more worn than the other. That was the first signal that something is wrong here. The car wasn't releasing the brakes as it should, and it was a little bit hot, the rim. So we knew something was going on. It wasn't floating, probably wasn't pressing on the pads equally much, or at least one of them were kind of stuck there, and here is the piston. It doesn't look too bad actually, but there are some signs there. It's a little bit pitted, rusty there, so we are going to replace it. That's not by far the worst I have seen. This is much worse, where it's rusty, and I don't repair them, I don't do anything about them, I just replace them. We can still buy these, and they come, we can still replace them. And some are concerned about the caliper, but we don't have to be concerned about it, because we have two different principles. Either we have the sealer on the piston and it seals against the bore of the walls here of the caliper, or we have this system where we have a sealer that is in the bore and it's sealing against the surface here. In that case, it doesn't really matter whatever the bore looks like. We don't have to refurbish or do anything about the caliper more than clean it, perhaps, because everything is sealing against the piston. Let's take out that bore. No, the sealer. We just need something pointy. Here it is. There you can see it. Was there. So what we need to do is we need to clean it thoroughly and wash it a little bit. And then we have in our box here we have let's see, here is a set, a new sealer that goes there, and a dust cover. The other one is not too bad, but we're replacing it anyway. And then we should have pistons. And here we have a new piston, nice and shiny. I think it's chrome, and goes in there. And there it's a little bit tricky to get all these sealers in correct position. But first we have another thing to take care of, which can be somewhat of a problem, and that is our air bleeder screw. This one, if this is stuck, that could mean somewhat of a trouble, and it can as well be a showstopper. So what we need to do is clean it. I will warm it up. We're going to spray it with some rust solvent. And what we need now is to just leave it as it is until tomorrow, or 2 days, or 3 days. We will see. What we could have done is sprayed it while it was still on the car, but it's a little bit more difficult. So now let's leave it like this, and let's get back to it tomorrow. Here we are back at the caliper. It's day 2, and it has been soaking for almost 24 hours, and I'm going to make an attempt to unscrew it. And you might wonder why I treat this with such a respect, and the reason is that a number of times it has failed. As I said, this could very well be a showstopper. Depends a little bit how you feel about yourself, and if you're usually lucky, everything goes your way, or like me, I lose the battle against these about half of the times. So I'm a little bit more careful now. Okay, so what I do, as you can see, someone has already been trying to remove it. Obviously we cannot use this tool, it's destroyed there. So there has been some kind of monkey business going on here already. And I will try to use my plier here and carefully, that's about the force I'm prepared to use here. So what I will do now is I will use a blowtorch and heat it a little bit and see if that is making any difference. I have, usually I say I have several steps, the worst case scenario, and but before that, let's see if the blowtorch is going to make any difference. And what I use together with the blowtorch, I have just a piece of metal here to isolate it like this. In that way it will be more concentrated heat. So what I do is I do like something like this, and that will concentrate the heat to the air bleeder. Not sure if you can see it in the camera. I maybe have to move it a little bit. Nothing. And I don't dare to apply more force because you see the weakest point here is right there. So if it's going to break, it's gonna break just above the threads, which means it's a serious issue to get it out later. No, we have to go to the more serious procedure. Now we have to wait until it cools down, and then we were gonna make an attempt again. Now we have tried to heat it up with a torch, heat it up with the oxyacetylene, still doesn't give. Now I'm going to try next step. and that is to drill a hole through the whole bleeder screw into the cylinder bore here. And as you can see, there is a hole here going through, not that hole, this one, going in here through into the bore, and it comes out there. So what we can do is to drill a hole through the whole bleeder screw. I will heat it up a third time, and then when it's cooled down, I will use the drill to reinforce the screw. I will push it down a little bit more. In that way, the drill is reinforcing the screw here, so it will not break here, hopefully. We don't need it to be that deep. It's only to reinforce the upper part here. Let's try now. It's coming loose, I think. Or it will break. No. Now it feels rather loose. There it is. Beaten up and twisted and strange looking guy, but we won this battle. Now it's for sure that we can save this. Oh, 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 oh. Hot, hot, hot. Whoa! Okay. So here we have the caliper. It has been through in a bath and it's clean. Now it's time to assemble the sealings here and the piston. The new piston should slide in here easily. We don't pay too much attention to the bore. It's somewhat okay. We don't need to do much about it. The only thing we do is we try to clean up these places here because the sealers are going there, so it cannot be too bumpy or lumpy or rusty or dirty, so we have to clean them up. And the first one is the sealer for the piston. Rather easy, goes in there. There's not much to it. It fits very good, very nice. Now we could apply some grease here and push in the piston. That's possible. The downside is that we have this dust cover, protection or whatever you call it, and that is more or less impossible to get in correct place behind the piston here. More or less impossible. So we have to install it now because it has an edge here. I hope you can see it. And that edge is going inside this place here. So that's where it has to be. Let's clean it a little bit. some grease. And then this part, and this is somewhat tricky. There are several ways of doing it. Perhaps, you see this little edge goes inside here. We would like to put it there first and then try to put the piston down, but that's not possible. It's rather difficult to put it on here and then try to get this edge past the piston and the iron here is not possible. So what I do is I put it on, let's say halfway. This is a little bit messy. It does give you a little bit of a fight. There you have it. And now I try to get this ridge here into the position here, but the piston cannot be at the same level. It cannot be like this because you won't get it inside the thread there. It has to be a little bit like this. There you have it. Now it's in position, as you can see. Now we just have to push down the piston. And the piston will come to the point where it has to go down through the rubber seal. There it is. You should be able to push it in . There you have it. I want to try it and see if it works. What you are looking for is that very, very small movement where the piston goes out and then it goes back. Only a very, very small amount, half a millimeter or a millimeter or so. That is the sealer on the piston expanding in one direction, and then when you release the pressure it goes back. And that is the motion you need to release the brakes. You can test it with the pressure, air pressure. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but that is very important. So now we are all good to go. Sealers are there, new piston. The caliper is as good as new. Now you can paint it or apply 5 coats of enamel or whatever you want to do with it, gold plate it. It doesn't really matter. What's matter is what it looks like inside here. Now we know it's okay. So the caliper is done. I got some new hardware here, new bolts. The old ones are a little bit worn and well, in a little bit rough shape, so I have new bolts, some other things, new hardware, and of course new brake pads. And you might ask if it's worth doing this job to an old caliper, because you can buy them rather cheap. The issue here is that this happened to be date correct for the car, around April in 1970. You see, here are 2 different calipers. This one has 2 bosses here, and it ends with 12. 80012 means it's correct for 1970. This one has only 1 boss, and it ends with I think it's 68, 88 or whatever it is, and that is 71 correct. So if it's not important, well, of course you can buy a remanufactured caliper. It's rather, I think there's something like 35 or 40 bucks, and of course with the shipping cost and everything here, then it will be more expensive. But now I'm restoring these because they are correct for the car. So I think anyhow, I think it's worth it. And okay, I'm gonna assemble it now. I don't show that on the video. I think you know how to do that. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.